This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are here in the studio in northern Colorado. The studio is actually maybe 3/4 through the process of being upgraded. We've got some updates to the camera gear, audio gear, etc. Yes, I know the studio was just built, but like everything else, we are actually trying to simplify it somewhat since I am just a one-man show and making it a little bit easier for us to produce. We're trying to automate it so we can actually do more video, so you can actually see us here in the studio. So stay tuned as more gear and more capabilities come online. This week's show, I want to talk about something that is the absolute mandatory requirement if you are going to be an innovator. This is something you cannot avoid. It is a 100% guarantee that everybody who wants to be highly creative, be an innovator, generate just absolutely just great killer ideas, and that is you need your brain. And how do you keep your brain healthy? So we're going to talk about brain health today, and what does that mean, and what is it you can do? What are the practical things you can do to improve your brain health? Now, many people hear about brain health in relation to dementia and Alzheimer's and those, and we'll talk a little bit about that through this show, but I want to talk more specifically about a handful of things that you can do to significantly improve your brain health. Now, this got inspired. There was an article in the Chicago Tribune. I'm from Chicago, so I still, even though I live in Colorado, I still read the Tribune periodically. So this was actually a story that appeared in the Tribune, actually written by a reporter, Leslie Barker, at the Dallas Morning News. And it's reporting on this study that came out of the University of Texas at Dallas. There's a new Center for Brain Health at the University of Texas, run by Sandra Bond Chapman. And there was a study and some research that was shared from the university that I thought was pretty interesting. And the quote that really triggered this was the fact that this is a quote from Dr. Chapman. It says, "Science is showing for the first time in 30 years that our brain is the most modifiable part of the body and the easiest to strengthen more than our heart or teeth." Strengthen. Not just you get what you get, but you strengthen it. So if you're a runner, a biker, and you're strengthening your muscles, how much time are you spending strengthening your brain muscle, particularly when it's the easiest to do relative to any other muscle that you might have? So we're going to talk about that the rest of this show, and we're going to talk about some very practical things. Let's start off with the one that my wife talks to me a lot. My wife is a nurse, so we're getting to that age where we want to make sure that we're around for our grandkids and don't become a burden on our kids as we age, and that is exercise. It is found that the higher your fitness level, the better your brain wiring is. It actually increases the number of pathways through your brain and widens those pathways. Think of it as like increasing your bandwidth in the process. Also, exercise is actually showing some real promise to slowing cognitive decline. I know a lot of people worry about Alzheimer's, dementia, and even if you have a hereditary version of that exercise will actually push back the symptoms. They're still studying this, but it could be multiple years, 3-5 years. You could push off any potential symptoms you may or may not get if you have a hereditary version. And then for those who allow their bodies to get out of shape, you actually could cause the onset of dementia just from that. And what they're saying is aim for 30 minutes most days. You don't have to do it every day of the week. 30 minutes most days. Um, but set that goal. It's like any other habit. Started at your how much you want to do per day, how many days a week, what's your weekly goals, what's your monthly goals, what's your annual goals. And look, if you're a listener to this podcast, I'm big on things like daily exercises. I've done multiple shows on the daily exercises that I try to do around keeping my brain, my creative muscle exercised. If you're not familiar with that, go back into the archive, go over to killerinnovations.com, and just search for creative muscle. Search bars in the upper right-hand corner, and it'll give you the shows that go through the exercises that I do on a daily basis to keep up with the creative muscles. And in fact, in the new studio, what we might try to do is actually record a video of me actually going through and doing that exercise. So we'll add that to the to-do list. Okay. So again, exercise. Number one thing you can do to improve your brain muscle. And the second one, which I thought was interesting, Dr. Chapman emphasized this a lot in her article and her research, which was take 5. Just take a 5-minute break. It's easy with us in work and 24/7. And, I find myself where I may have a plan for the day when I go into the office. And within the first couple of minutes, the entire plan is chucked out the window. And my work, because of my role as a CEO, tends to be very interrupt driven. Things come up, they need my input on, some issue comes up. One of our funders needs to talk to me. So my work tends to be very interrupt driven. Yet at the same time, I am very focused on needing to complete a certain amount of activities in order to keep the organization moving forward. But in reality, our brains love rest. We need to take that break. We need to give it kind of a breather, right? To let it kind of recover, right? It's like you're going out on a hike here in Colorado. If you go hiking in the mountains, you're going to hike for a certain amount of time, and then you got to take a breather. You're going to take 5 minutes on the side of the trail to catch your breath. Your brain needs that same breather. So take 5 minutes 5 times a day, or what we call 5 by 5. So it's 5 minutes 5 times a day, and just let your brain stop. Now, it could be you just go out in the parking lot. We're big at our office of people walking outside in the parking lot. We live in a beautiful part of the country. You get to see the mountains, breathe the fresh mountain air. We go outside, we'll take a walk around the building. And it could be that you just sit still, close your eyes, lean your head back in your chair, right? And just let your brain rest. It's not like taking the time to read a book or listen to an audible or even listening to a podcast. Turn that all off. Let your brain have that 5-minute break. And I can't tell you how refreshing that is, just to give the brain an opportunity to kind of recover. We put a lot on it. We require a lot on it. And those of us in the innovation game, we put our brains under even more pressure and even more stress. And you need to give it that break. So try the 5 by 5. 5-minute breaks, 5 times a day, and just give yourself that breather. If I'm in the office and I don't want to go outside, I'll just sit back in my chair, lean my head back, close my eyes, set my timer on my phone, and I may put my earbud in so that way I hear the beep and I don't blare it out over the entire office. And keep in mind, in our office, everybody's in cubes, 6 foot by 8 foot cubes. I am in the exact same cube as 100% of our 200 people staff. I don't have a private office. I don't have a door to close. And hopefully by people seeing me taking those breaks and laying my head back and closing my eyes, it gives them permission to do it, right? Everybody feels like they got to look busy when the boss is around. If you're a leader, set the model this behavior, whether it's inviting people from your office to exercise with you in the morning or taking the 5 by 5, finding those 5 times a day, you can take that 5-minute break. Now, the one thing I want to make sure is I don't do all of these things perfectly. I struggle. I'm not a big exercise person. My wife and I have outfitted an exercise room in our house here in Colorado. And if you went down there right now and you looked inside of it, it's full of luggage. We've collected luggage over all these years of international travel. We have an entire room full of luggage, and we're trying to go through it and figure out what we want to keep and what we're going to give away. But it's been that way for months, which has not been allowing anybody to use the exercise room. And has anybody been squawking about it? No. So even though I'm not perfect, I'm not a big exercise, I'm not a big biker, I like to go maybe do walks and hikes, given my, I used to be a big outdoors Boy Scout, Eagle Scout thing. But I'm not saying you gotta do all these things to be perfect, but let's try these things. Let's try them together, in fact, okay? So don't go anywhere. We got more to go through. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are talking today about brain health and brain health as it relates to innovation and creativity. And what we're going to talk about, what we've already talked about in the first segment, was we talked about exercise. Not my favorite thing to do. I'll be the first to admit it. Just not something I get into. And so therefore, not something I get up in the morning and go, yoo-hoo. And I know it's just like everything else, right? You got to get it into the practice of it. Turn it into a habit. My wife is phenomenal at this. She will get up. She's out the door before 5 a.m. There's a lake not too far from us called McIntosh Lake. You got this beautiful view of Long's Peak into Rocky Mountain National Park. There's a pair of nesting eagles. And if you follow me on Instagram, you know I'm really into eagles. I'm an Eagle Scout. For some reason, that kind of stuck. I collect eagle photographs and prints and those kinds of things. And there's 2 nesting eagles over there. You'd think that would get me up and get me going. No, I prefer my sleep in the morning, but I've got to do these. This is a little bit of today's podcast. Is also a little bit of preaching to myself. And then we talked about take 5 by 5, 5 minutes a day, 5 times a week, or 5 times a day, and let your brain just rest. Third one is stop multitasking. Stop multitasking. We tend to think that it's a good thing we can do 3 things at the same time. But in reality, we actually do all 3 things at a less quality, and we make more mistakes. And what's the framework we talk about around innovation? FIRE. Focus, ideation, ranking, execution. The F is focus. Focus is what's the one thing or one area you're going to search for that next idea. Focus also applies to every task we do during the day. Focus. If you try to multitask, you're doing more things, you're making more errors, you take longer to do them, and the amount of thinking you can put around any idea is much shallower because your brain is trying to hold 3 things in its head at the same time. Focus on single tasking. Set aside that time. I've gotten now in the habit, I put my earbuds in, I play instrumental, upbeat music, but I make it really, really low, no lyrics. It allows me to kind of drown out a little bit of the office noise. I'm not overhearing Paula, my executive assistant's conversation on the phone with somebody. She sits right on the other side of the wall from me, or the other people around me. So I just put my earbuds in, light music, try to drown that out, and I'm focusing on one task, one activity at a time. And what you really find, though, is if by doing this, focusing on one task, doing it, for an extended period of time, and really thinking deeply, that's actually an exercise for strengthening your brain. It's not, like doing a Sudoku or a crossword puzzle. Take your normal activity that you do, really focus on it, do it deeper, put more mental effort in it, and in the process of doing your work, you're actually exercise and strengthening your brain. Yeah, it's kind of like people who've now got raised desks, and in fact, in our office, 200 people, I think we've got like 150 desks that all are electronic, allow people to stand at their desks, and some of our people put treadmills in. So it's kind of that version of putting the treadmill to your desk and walk while you're working. In this case, just by focusing, not trying to do multitasking, focusing, you're actually exercising your brain. The next one that came out of the research at the University of Texas at Dallas is another one that is not on my top 10 list. My wife, if she ever listens to my podcast, which she does not, is this would be the one that she would quote back to me. And that is up your fruit and vegetable intake. Fruit, I'm fine with. Some vegetables I'm okay with, but I'm not a big vegetable eater. But Chapman makes a good point, right? It's really what we eat affects our energy level. It affects our glucose, which is the fuel. And the brain needs lots of fuel. It needs lots of fuel. Based on depending on when you listen to this show, for the last 4 weeks or so, I've been preparing for my TED Talk coming up. And it's actually today, the day I'm recording this. Later on today, I'll be delivering a talk at TEDx Boulder, 2,000 people in the auditorium over at Mackey, over on the campus at CU Boulder. And that's the one thing, that the amount of effort I've put into this talk is more than I've ever put into a talk in my entire career. And the amount of mental energy this has taken up has just been phenomenal. I found myself needing to consume actually more food, but not the sugary stuff, but the stuff that's really going to be the fuel. So some of the recommendations, this comes actually from AARP. No, I am not a member of AARP. I don't think you're ever old enough to qualify for AARP. At least that's what I tell myself. So the food groups you should be eating are berries, whole, not juiced. Fresh vegetables, they say bring on the greens. Healthy fats like olive oil. Nuts, I do eat a lot of nuts. I'm a big trail mix guy. Fish and seafood, I'm actually getting back into fish, eating more fish. And then interestingly enough, AARP also, as part of this, recommends practice innovative thinking. So this isn't me, this is AARP. So AARP tells you to do more innovative thinking. Innovative, and this is the way they position it. Innovative thinking in our world that's always changing helps keep mental independence. Our brain is built to do this until the day we die. Yes, it's not like, I'm in my late 50s now, and it's not like I'm ever going to stop being in the innovation game. It's just not going to happen. It's like the old, when I retire, am I going to sit in a rocking chair and, watch cars go down the road? No. I am going to be in the innovation game until the day I die. Part of today's speed talk here on the show is to convince myself of the exercises and things I need to do to improve my brain health. So here are a few tips, things that you can do, just exercise creative thinking. Thank someone using a different set of words. When someone does something nice for us, what's the word combination you use? Is it, hey, thanks? Or do you say thank you? Right? We get into this rote, right? So if someone does something nice to us, holds the door open for us, or, helps us reach something in the grocery store or whatever, we always use the exact same words. Thanks, thank you. Come up with something different. Hey, I really appreciated that. Come up with a different set of words. And come up with a different set of words every time you want to thank somebody. Think a different way to formulate an email. Don't write your content, your subject line the exact same way. Restructure your emails. Okay? So in this segment, we talked about stop multitasking, more fruits, more vegetables. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. This week, we're talking about brain health. It's the one organ that's absolutely required if you're going to be in the innovation and creativity game. So far, we've talked about exercise and then take 5. Give your brain that break. We've also talked about stop multitasking. Stop multitasking. And then the fourth one, not my most favorite one, but I've got to continue to think about it and do it, which is up my fruit and vegetable intake. So what's next? Next is take a technology timeout. Take a respite from the technology. Now, I know some of you are probably now on the floor laughing hysterically. I'm the former chief technology officer for Hewlett Packard. Um, driving the construction of 40 million laptops a year, another 25, 30 million desktops a year, workstations, displays, servers, storage, all the things HP did. And here I am telling you to take a technology timeout. And that is sometimes we get so wrapped up in the technology, and the technology is stimulating the brain. It actually, in some cases, doesn't stimulate the brain in the way we want. One of the experiments that I've been doing over the last 2 years or so was trying to compare my retention levels of information based on what I read off of glass. So something digitally off of my laptop, my Android app on my iPad, whatever. So can I read things off of glass and get the same level of retention versus reading it off of paper? And what I've found is that is not the case. I actually get much better retention when I read it off of paper. And if you go back and you look, there's a whole bunch of research on this. When we look at glass, when we're reading digital information, our brain clicks into skimming mode and we skim the information. We don't read it for depth, we don't read it for retention. We're not reading it for really the thinking and thoughts. At least that's the way my brain works. And maybe it's age, I don't know. But I've gone back to topics and books that are specifically things that I want to retain and really think deeply on. I'll buy the book, I've gotten back into really being a concerted reader and not just skimming through the book, but reading the book pretty much to the end. In some cases, I don't read a book all the way to the end, but I really do want to do that. So in this case, taking a technology timeout where you're just, you're getting caught, flipping through and reading, Facebook posts or watching YouTube videos. Um, I'm a big taker of online classes. I think I've taken over like half the classes offered now over at Masterclass. And so I'm a big believer in that, but you do need to take that technology break. You just need to get away from it. And when my wife and I, and we're off in the mobile studio and I'm doing broadcasts from the road, I have found now that being on the road and driving, 3,000 miles, a week when we're out visiting entrepreneurs and innovators and doing, recording them for their stories, that is some of the most restful time. Yes, I'm driving, but I'm not with my face down in my phone or working on a laptop. So take a technology time out. There's also a better benefit. If we took the technology out of every meeting, I'm going to guess that most meetings would end in about 20 minutes. So maybe you even help your teammates, your organization by taking technology out of meetings. No technology allowed. You can bring a notebook to take notes on, but no technology allowed in the meetings, and see what happens. And the other is believe in your brain. Have the confidence that your brain is going to be in shape for some time. I've met some people who worry so much about dementia and Alzheimer's that, their parent got it, their grandparent got it, they're going to get it, so why try, right? And I would argue that through the exercise and eating well and exercising your creative muscle, keeping your brain sharp, you can actually push back those symptoms. In our family, it's on my wife's side of the family with, her grandmother having dementia, really both grandmothers on both sides ending up with severe dementia towards the end of their life. And so therefore the concern and the fear is that going to come down through the and affect my wife as an example. But I can tell you that in case of my wife, she's an inspiration simply because she doesn't buy it. She's not going to rest back and say, well, why should I even try? It's going to eventually happen. Just, eat what you want, do what you want, type of thing. And she's like, no, I'm going to do my research. I'm going to understand how do I improve my health, what I can do to push it back. What is it that I can avoid eating or avoid doing that might lead to this? And I guess overall, if you're in the innovation and creativity game, then you're already committed to doing something that is absolutely amazing. Amazing to where people who believe that they are not creative look at your output and are just amazed at how did you come up with that idea? How did you do that? How did you come up with that new product, that new service? How did you start that business around an idea you had? So you're already doing amazing things. And that part of you that allows you to do that amazing thing is your brain. It is the most valuable asset. If you could put it on the books as an asset for the corporation, what would you value it at? It's unlimited value. It's what allows you to do what you do. If you're a CEO like I am, it's the collective of all the brains of the people within your organization that allows you to do what it is you do. So what wouldn't you do to protect that asset, to maintain that asset, to improve that asset? And that's what I'm really talking about today, is just getting us to kind of step back, take a breath, and think about, what do you do for your brain to make it better, to make it more valuable, to produce better ideas? And what wouldn't you do? What exercise wouldn't you do? What food would you stop eating that's hurting your brain? And as I said at the beginning of this show, I'm as big of a problem as anybody. So don't think I'm being preachy here. I'm trying not to be preachy. I'm preaching to myself, right? I don't eat right. I don't drink right. I've switched to hint water here most recently because of wanting to reduce my calories and get off of the Pepsis and Cokes that I drink, but I love the taste and fall back into that habit. So I'm not perfect. I try to do better, right? But we can all do better. We can all do better. So again, let's review the tips we talked about today. So first off was exercise, 30 minutes a day. Don't do it every day of the week, but you need to do the exercise and it needs to be strenuous. Talk to a doctor first, though, before you start your exercise regime. Take 5 minutes, 5 times a day. Take a breather. Just set your head back. Set your alarm. Don't be listening to lyrics. Don't be listening to an audible book. Don't be reading a paper. That's not giving your brain a break. Stop multitasking. Focus. Focus on single tasking. Doing one thing, that actually strengthens your brain. Up your fruits and vegetable intakes. Berries, vegetables, healthy fats, nuts, fish, seafood. Take a technology time out. In fact, my wife every year takes a 3-day silent retreat at a nunnery in Arkansas, right? Away from all technology and even away from talking, to just think and get away from the technology. And lastly, believe in your brain. If you worry about what's going to happen, whether dementia, whatever, don't worry about that. Invest in their brain. Build up that brain reserve. The more exercise you do, the bigger your brain reserve is, and that brain reserve will be used to push back the effects of aging. So build up that brain reserve. So as we come down to wrapping up this segment, think about that. Brain health for creativity and innovation. What would you do? It's the most valuable asset you have. It's the thing that allows you to compete and win in the innovation economy. So invest in it. With that, don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back after this quick commercial break. We'll have another segment of 5 minutes to new ideas. This segment is about these segments are really about letting you respond to some ideas and creativities that we share. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Back in the early days of this show, I would share what I called a killer question in each episode. These questions were designed to be used in your personal, team, or organization's innovation efforts. Now, based on feedback from listeners just like you, we've decided to bring it back with some improvements. Each episode of the Killer Innovations has a segment that I'm now calling 5 Minutes to New Ideas. It's designed for the creative mind looking for that next great idea. Each episode will challenge you to think differently about yourself, your business, and your products and services by asking unique, funny, and sometimes crazy questions. These questions are designed to force you to look beyond the obvious and to uncover ideas and opportunities you never before considered. So, get out your notebook and be ready to uncover that game-changing idea. Here is 5 Minutes to New Ideas. The designers and engineers who work at HP face many challenges in getting their ideas signed off on. It's a long process from an idea to a finished prototype and ultimately before the product hits the market. Now, before the product can actually hit the market, it faces one final test. I take the prototype home and give it to my wife and say, "Tell me what you think." Now, my wife is extremely smart and focused individual, but she is emphatically not a techie. She doesn't care how a gadget works, she just wants it to work. Her lack of specialized knowledge has been hugely valuable to me over the years. If I test a new product, I can troubleshoot it almost without thinking. I might not even notice a glitch that could cause major hassles for an end consumer because the fix is just second nature to me. On the other hand, if my wife can't get a product to work, the first thing she does is call me up and yell at me, which is a great incentive to get our products as flawless as possible. Back in 2007, she was relocating her stained glass studio to California from our former home on the East Coast. She was a little nervous about the drive. Luckily, I had just been given the first working model for the latest GPS device that HP was about to go into production on. I gave her a quick lesson, and off she went. 3 days later, she calls me from the road, almost speechless with rage. The GPS looked great, had the latest hardware features anyone could want. What it didn't have were accurate maps. Every time my wife searched for rest stops, it came up empty. When she finally made it out west, she met me for lunch at the HP cafeteria, and when you know it, the head of our division that developed the product came up to ask her what she thought. Her response? Quote, "Well, it was clearly designed by a guy. I stopped at every crummy gas station bathroom between here and Kentucky," end quote. The GPS was super fast, looked great, but had completely missed the mark on why people buy GPS devices, which is based almost purely on the quality of the maps and the points of interest along the way. Great hardware cannot compensate for faulty software. The GPS device failed the wife test, and it had failed my test too. It was sent back to the team to start over. There are two ways to uncover these kinds of potential annoyances in your new or existing products. One is to observe your customers and see what they are doing with your products and what their experience with it is. Not what they say it is, but what it actually is. The other is use the product yourself. Either way, you need to be fanatical about constantly improving the product and getting rid of the problems you uncover. Keep in mind that I've observed major differences between how men and women handle these exact same issues. Now, I'm not being sexist here, this is just a typical observation. What I've seen is guys have egos wrapped up in their new devices. They will not let the gadget win. A woman will give it 3 chances. If she tries to use a new product 3 times and it doesn't work, she'll take it back to the store because she doesn't want or have any interest in fighting with the product. Men are much more likely to keep tinkering with the device, and if all else fails, stick it in the garage and forget about it. If it doesn't work for a woman, she'll let you know, and you'll have a return product on your store shelves. This is one of the reasons I rely so heavily on my wife test. My wife is a zero tolerance consumer. If you don't have a zero tolerance consumer, you need to go out and find one and then hold on to them. Have them test your products and give you that unvarnished truth about your product's real usefulness and value. That way you can answer the question, what is surprisingly inconvenient about my product? Now listen carefully. Answer the question, what is surprisingly inconvenient about my product? But don't just stop there. Ask yourself, how do you uncover what customers perceive to be inconvenient about your product? Do you need to watch them? Can you survey them? Can you monitor their use of the product with their permission? How do you uncover what customers perceive to be inconvenient about your product? Are you aware of any of the inconveniences? Do you go through bug reports or calls into the customer support center, emails that customers may send in? Are you aware of them? Do you use your own products or services? If you don't, you should. And last, what is your version of the wife test? That user, that customer of yours who has zero tolerance for any issues. So go beyond the obvious by ignoring your own likes and dislikes about any given product. You are not the best gauge of your customer. Get up and go talk to them. I'm Phil McKinney, and thanks for listening. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join in. If you have any comments or suggestions, drop me a note over at phil@killerinnovations.com. Now, the reason I've been doing this show since 2005 is to pay back my early mentor by paying it forward. My first mentor, Bob Davis, invested an immense amount of time in training and coaching me, which had a major impact on my career. When I went back and asked him how I could pay him back, he just laughed and said I couldn't. I had to pay it forward. If I could ask for a favor, could you help me pay it forward? How? 1, give us a rating wherever you get your podcasts, as that helps spread the word. And 2, by telling others about the show. This episode of Killer Innovations was produced by the Innovators Network. You can find the show notes and the entire show catalog over at killerinnovations.com. I'll talk to you next week. In the meantime, go out and change the world with your killer innovation. Bye-bye.